Hello guys, welcome back to the Best Talk by Den High. Today I'm just gonna kick off with an article I picked somewhere. It's called Witch Wolf. Yeah, it, a Native American parable captures an important lesson about personal responsibility and making choices. An old Cherokee was teaching his grandson responsibility and making choices. So an old Cherokee was teaching his grandson about life. He said, "I feel as if I have two wolves fighting in my heart. So one wolf is vengeful, jealous, angry, and violent. The other wolf is loving and compassionate." The grandson thought about this for a minute and then asked him, "So which wolf will win the fight?" The grandfather replied, "The one I feed." So whatever we focus our attention is what we are nurturing in our lives. So that attention is reflected in our thoughts, feelings, and actions. So whatever we feed, we will live, grow, and become real. So what are you nurturing? Which wolf are you feeding? Is it the wolf of passion and the wolf or the wolf of vengeance? So it's up to you to know what you need and also what the world needs around you. Okay, so today I'm gonna kick out some topic about how we respond. So we cannot always control the circumstances that we are faced with, but we can choose the way we respond to them. So Viktor E. Frankl, the revered Australian psychotherapist and an author, was a Nazi concentration camp survivor who endured imprisonment in Auschwitz. We only know about the terror of Auschwitz through the told story by the Holocaust survivor, the youngest Holocaust survivor, Tova Friedman. And other ones you've read it or you heard it somewhere on different platforms, because Tova has been narrating that ordeal like it's real. Every time I come across a clip, I always tend to weigh and listen. So the degradation, brutality, and loss of life that he witnessed was beyond comprehension, among many other causes. For grief and despair, he lost his wife, who died after being transferred to Bergen-Belsen. Yet through this ordeal, he persevered and found a transcendence. So it was from his and others suffering in the camps that came to his hallmark conclusion that even in the most absurd, painful, and dehumanized situation, life has a meaning. So Frank realized that the meaning in life does not come from what happens to us, but from how we interpret what happens to us, and then what we do with it. So Viktor Frank thoughtfully argued that we must accept responsibility for our choices, even the most subtle and internal decisions, including what we think. So he himself made a conscious choice that profoundly changed the course of his life. In a tribute to Viktor Frank, so Paul G. Durbin, PhD, recounts Dr. Frank's decision to stay in Europe in early 1940s when he had a chance to escape the Nazism and go to America. So the situation in his homeland was becoming more and more difficult for those of the Jewish race. The local Jewish synagogue had been bombed and left in ruins by the Nazis. So as the synagogue was destroyed, he went to a nearby Christian church. He prayed that God will give him some direction as to what he should do. He wanted to know if he should go to America or stay in his family. So though he earnestly prayed, no answer came. He left the church feeling that God had ignored him. On the way home, he came to the destroyed synagogue. He stopped for a few moments and picked up a piece of wood to take home as a keepsake for his father. When he arrived home, he examined the piece of wood more closely. As he read the inscription on the piece of wood, he realized that indeed God had heard his prayer and had answered him. The inscription on the piece of wood read, "Honor your father and mother." His parents were in Europe and could not leave. He stayed in Europe and eventually ended up a prisoner of the Nazis. If Frank had not gone to that church, stopped at the destroyed synagogue, picked up that piece of wood and carried it home, and read what was inscribed on it, will we have ever heard of Viktor Frank? Maybe will he have had the impact on the second half of the 20th century that he had? I doubt it. He did go by that church, stopped at the destroyed synagogue, picked up that piece of wood, carried it home, read it, and become one of the great contributors to psychology. So Frank survived that Holocaust, and the Nazi death comes even in the degradation and misery of the concentration camps. So Frank was able to exercise the most important freedom of all, the freedom to determine one's own attitude and spiritual well-being. So under the most extreme circumstances in which anyone could feel justified in blaming others for his distress, Dr. Frank used his experience to help his fellow prisoners and ultimately to develop a new approach to psychotherapy that has helped millions more. So his book Man's Search for Meaning, written in 1959, remains one of the most widely read volumes in the world, so I heard. Now, no matter what situation or challenge we find ourselves facing, we can decide how to respond. We can feel victimized and resigned and give others the power over our lives, or we can take personal responsibility for the choices we make to live more prosperous life. We must accept the responsibility. So I'm going to leave you something by Jim Rohn. So he said, you must take personal responsibility. You cannot change the circumstances, the seasons, or the wind, but you can change yourself. That is something you have charge of. So thank you for listening. Hope this was a really good one, because it gives you just a basic model of what I feel it's really needed. So first, choose what you need to choose. Which character in you that are you nurturing? You've heard about this character development, so which one are you nurturing? Because it's true, life can get really, really, really shady. Things can get really, really bad, and you look around, no one can tell you anything, because you feel like you are the edge of it. You just an inch away from falling off the top of the mountain. But how do you embrace yourself to come back and start from where life has put you? Sometimes it's always for the best. Sometimes it's just natural selection, how people say, but it's up to you for you to survive or not to survive. So like I said in the beginning of this episode, so I said, what do you really need around you? Which wolf are you going to feed? The wolf of vengeance or the wolf of compassion and love? Around you, which wolf would you like? How would you like people to treat you? So that is how would you treat people, because how you like people to treat you is how you're supposed to be treating people. And when faced with the toughest time, I always say, look for someone, talk to them, find out. Don't be ignorant. Sometimes it's the simple word that we need. It's the simple and the basic things that we need to start from. Don't let your ego swallow your life, because if you let your ego be that big enough to swallow your life, you can't take an advice from anyone, or you won't be able to to say you want to learn it from someone. Some people are really blessed. They make choices that really help them. They are strong enough they have that discipline, that self-assurance to do